Okay, we are going to work today on some more exciting and fun things. Specifically, we are going to work on comparing fractions with like and unlike denominators. So this is Unit 4, Lesson 2, for those of you who are keeping track. So it's comparing fractions with like and unlike denominators. All right, so there are a couple of vocabulary words that you will want to know. One of those is common denominator, and that's just a denominator that two or more fractions have that are the same. So it means that the denominators are the same. Fractions that have the same denominator are called like fractions. So these are fractions that already have a common denominator. And then we have fractions that are unlike. So unlike fractions have different denominators. When we have unlike fractions, we have to find what's called a least common denominator. Least common denominator. This is also referred to as an LCD. That's the abbreviation for it. The least common denominator is the smallest whole number divisible by each of the denominators of two or more unlike fractions. So it is the smallest whole number that can be divided by or is divisible by by each of the denominators I had to squish that on there, of two or more unlike fractions. To find a least common denominator, we have to look for multiples of numbers. So multiples is your next vocabulary word. And multiples are the product of a whole number multiplied by another whole number. So it's the product of two factors, of two whole number factors. For instance, 12 is a multiple of 4 because 4 times 3 equals 12. So we did this little tactic when we worked with division where we listed the multiplication facts down the side. Working with fractions is very similar to that when we're working with unlike denominators. So I'm going to draw a line here because that's the end of our vocabulary. All right, that's the end of our vocabulary. And remember, you can pause this, you can rewind it, you can stop it at any time to do the things that you need to do if I am moving too fast for you. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself and doing that. All right, so we're going to talk about right now what to do to compare two fractions that are like. So compare like fractions. And we're going to use the same symbols that we use to compare whole numbers and decimals. It's the greater than, less than, equal to signs. Okay? So if the numbers are like, it means that they have denominators that are the same. It means that their whole is cut into the same number of pieces. So for our first example, example 1 is going to be 5/8 compared to 7/8. This is a really easy thing to compare because we're dealing with eights. It's apples to apples, as the saying goes. Okay, we have a common denominator. The denominator is the same. Okay, same denominators. So then we have to look at the numerator to see which one is greater. So if we have the same denominator, look at the numerator to see which is greater. I know you guys love my little rhymes there. If you have the same denominator, look at the numerator to see which is greater. If you have the same denominator, look at the numerator to see which is greater. So in this specific comparison, 7 is greater than 5. Therefore, 5/8 is less than 7/8. Seems pretty easy, right? If you have the same denominator, look at the numerator to see which is greater. I was a little bit off on that one, but you guys can pretend, right, that I'm perfect and can sing on key. All right, moving right along. We're going to now compare 7/9 to 2/9. Again, we have the same denominator, so we're going to look at the numerator to see which is greater. When we look at the numerator, 7 is greater than 2, therefore 7/9 is greater than 2/9. All right, it's all fun and games until we have to deal with fractions that have different denominators. Okay, so there's a couple ways that we can do this. So now we're talking about fractions that are unlike. Unlike fractions are fractions that have different denominators. Yikes. Zowie, I don't know if I can do this. Sure you can. Take a deep breath. Exhale. We can do this together. You're not in it by yourself, so take heart. We're going to compare 1/4 with 5/8. One of the ways that we can compare unlike fractions is to multiply the denominators. So multiply each fraction by the other fraction's denominator. Can multiply each fraction by the other fraction's denominator. So the way that would look is like this. Here are our denominators. There's a 4 and an 8. So when we look at this, we're going to multiply 1/4, and we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by 8. When we do that, we end up with 1 times 8 is 8, 4 times 8 is 32. Then we're going to take 5/8 and we're going to multiply the numerator by 4 and the denominator by 4. So when we have 5/8 and we multiply by 4 over 4, we end up with 5 times 4 is 20, and 8 times 4 is 32. So now we can compare fractions with like denominators. 8/32 is less than 20/32. Therefore, 1/4 is less than 5/8. Okay, this is one strategy for comparing unlike fractions. Our next strategy involves finding the LCD. Find the least common denominator. When finding the least common denominator, the first thing I want to do is I want to look at my fractions and I want to find the multiples of those fractions. So let's compare 5/6 with 3/8. Now our multiples, remember, are those things that are the product of two whole numbers being multiplied together. So we could list them out like this: 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3. An easier way to do that is to take, 6 times 1, 6 times 2. We're going to take our denominators, which are 6 and 8. So we're going to take 6 and 8, and we're going to write them on a line one over the other. Now we're not making a new fraction with this. We're just going to list out the multiples. So when we count by sixes, we start with 6 times 1 is 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, and I'm going to go all the way to 48 because I know 6 times 8 is 48. So if I don't hit something in between there, at least I've got up to 6 times 8. With 8, I'm going to do my 8s. I'm going to count by 8s. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. Now you may have noticed well before I got there, before I finished my multiples, that 24 and 24 are the same. 24 and 24 are the same. Once I hit that, I don't actually need to keep going. If I see that there is a connection, I just do this for myself so that I can make sure I hit at least one connected denominator for these two numbers. So now I have to say, okay, this multiple of 6 comes from multiplying by 1, 2, 3, 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. Multiples of 8, 1, 2, 3. So 8 times 3 equals 24. So to make our denominators 24, we have to multiply 6 times 4, and we have to multiply 8 times 3. Remember that whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So that's going to look like this. 5/6. 6 times 4 equals 24. We're going to multiply that 5 by 4. 5 times 4 is 20. With 3/8, I know that 8 times 3 equals 24. Whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. So I'm going to multiply by 3. 3 times 3 is 9/24. So when comparing 20/24 to 9/24, 20/24 is greater than 9/24. So 5/6 is greater than 3/8. Because you are fifth graders and you will be working with word problems, it's really important at this time to talk about some of the wording that you might find in some of your word problems that will give you hints about comparisons. So, we will be looking for the greatest number when we see words like farther or bigger or more. We will be looking for the least or the smallest number when you hear things like fastest, smaller, less. Okay, so it's important, especially when you're dealing with time, that you understand that the fastest time is going to be the smallest number. So if I ran something in, let's say I ran the 50-yard dash in, I don't even know what a reasonable amount of time is, 7 seconds the first time, and I ran it in 5 seconds the second time. Even though 7 is the larger number or the greater number, 5 seconds is the faster time. So when you're comparing time, 5 seconds is faster than 7 seconds. So the word fastest is going to tell you that you're looking for the number or the fraction or the decimal that is the least. So I'm going to run through your assignment real quick. Denominators that are the same, the smallest common denominator between two fractions, the product of a whole number multiplied by another whole number. We went over all of those vocabulary. Choose the fraction that shows the model. You should be able to do that and that. That one looks pretty easy. Find the common denominator by multiplying each fraction by the other fraction's denominator. Choose less than or equal to for the blank. So on this one, it's really important for you to understand that the blank is not a subtraction sign. So they're going to have a fraction that looks like this, maybe 1/4, and they're going to have one that looks like 7/8, and they want you to compare the two numbers. Their line is not that long, but that line is just where you would put your greater than, less than, or equal to symbols. So used to, you would see it and it would have like a circle on it so you would know, but they're asking you to choose greater than, less than, or equal to on that blank. So don't get confused, that's not a subtraction sign. Find the multiples, determine the equivalent fractions. Okay, so these are all things that we've gone over. I'm not seeing anything in here that should be a surprise to you. Let's see. Who ate more pie? Who played in the game the most? All right, yeah, there are some word problems on here you're going to have to read carefully. And we're going to go over how to work through word problems today. Well, it won't be today for you, but we're going to go over how to work on word problems in class. So I hope that this helps you. Please let me know if you have any questions.